Now, the internet's a great thing because if you have a camera and internet access, you can share your opinion, and that's exactly what I'm going to do today as I give you my opinion and tell you 7 of the Harley stereotypes that you should believe. So if you like the type of videos I do here, consider subscribing and hit your notifications. Let's go and get into it. Now, the first one is that we love playing dress up in our full leathers. I don't know if I would say so much as, wearing full leathers, but I would call it more a necessity. So you got to remember that a lot of Harley Davidsons are good for touring. And when you ride in the cold, this is something you're probably going to want. I found this out the hard way when I went up to Tennessee last March, and I didn't think I needed any kind of chaps or anything like that. I was like, man, it feels great where I'm at. It probably feels good up there, until I woke up and it was 30 overnight just like that. So those are some of the things you learn along the way. And these chaps right here allowed me to ride way more comfortably. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, you got a Harley, so you probably have a big fairing and all this kind of stuff. It blocks the majority of the wind, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, it doesn't block the wind down low, unless you have lowers or something like that. The point is, leathers, chaps, jackets, these things serve a couple of different purposes. Not only do you look really cool, and I think that's obvious, but also if you go down, this is really good at protecting your skin, and it can keep you warm when it's cold outside. The only rule you need to really follow is they have to have a bar and shield, Willie G, or say Harley. It has to be some indication that these are Harley branded items. Other than that, you're good to go. Now this next one applies to all my fixed and non-fixed fairing brothers, Indian, Harley, whatever kind of cruiser you have. And the stereotype is that we actually hate the wind because we want more protection. So we buy bigger windshields, we may put lowers on, we may buy a bike with lowers. We may close up all the vents, which actually doesn't help you too much. Typically it leads to more buffering in the handlebars, and we definitely don't want that. And like I just showed you, we may even be wearing leathers as well. So while this may give the perception that we actually hate the wind, the first thing I would say to that is if we actually hated the wind and we didn't want to battle against the elements, we would just simply be riding around in a truck or a car or any number of things, right? But we're willing to take those things on. The biggest thing with, again, these touring motorcycles that have a fixed or non-fixed fairing is we don't want to go longer distances. And so if you have an open fairing bike, you have no windshield, no protection whatsoever, most people, not all, but most people will have an issue riding all day long, because when that wind is constantly being forced into your chest, you're having to do more correction in the handlebars, and it's going to wear you out quicker. At the very least, you're going to have to take additional breaks, and it's just going to take you longer. And so by having all of this protection, we have the ability to keep some of that wind specifically off of our chest, and it allows us to not necessarily go hands-free, but not do as many corrections in the bars and be able to kind of relax when we're on those longer trips, or relax more than what you can when there's no fairing, no windshield, nothing. But of course we still get wind around the fairing, over the top, down on our legs, blowing in from the side, and we get everything else too, by the way, whether that's rain, thunderstorms, bugs hitting you in the face, sand and rocks getting kicked up into your eyes, and generally dealing with the elements that motorcyclists have to deal with. We get all that too. Maybe we get a little less sand and rocks, but that definitely happens, so we're not immune to really any of that. It's primarily just keeping that wind off of our chest. Now the next stereotype about Harley riders that's actually true is our love for Harley apparel. Some people think that we only wear clothes that have a bar and shield, and that's simply and absolutely 100% true. Harley Davidson's clothing lineup is almost as important as the motorcycles themselves. As a matter of fact, when you go to buy a brand new Harley, and especially if it's your first time buying a Harley, you will probably be introduced to the accessory and clothing section before you meet the parts department. I mean, you can buy any and everything you could possibly think of Harley Davidson. So while it's untrue that it's just the clothes, it is true that most of us have a lot of Harley gear, from floor mats to clocks to blankets, t-shirts, and t-shirts, sweatshirts, more t-shirts, jackets, more t-shirts, maybe a wife beater or two, headgear and hats. Pretty much anything you can think of that has a bar and shield on it, we will typically buy. But I'm actually a little bit more of a fan of the Willie G collection, so most of my stuff, yes, it does have little bar and shields, but most of mine is actually Willie G. Still counts though. I don't think they make rubbers yet either, but they probably should, because if you ride a Harley and of course wear the gear, you're probably doing a whole lot of slaying, if you know what I'm saying. Now let's talk about the events, because the events are huge in Harley Davidson. The stereotype is that, you know, all these guys get together on a Saturday morning and they go ride their Harleys for 20 miles and make a bunch of noise and look really cool doing it. And this is true, but there's actually a lot more that goes into it, like for real. Harley Riders are involved in a ton of different charity rides. If we happen to have a police officer that unfortunately loses his life in the line of duty, or a firefighter, or any number of things, if we lose a fellow rider, there will be rides, charity events, and everything to help out those families and to help kids. Toy runs at Christmas time, of course. We for sure have these events where we get together and we just ride somewhere, have lunch, and come back to the dealership and spend a little bit of money or whatever. But a lot of the rides that we do are actually charity events. And that's one of the best reasons to get a Harley Davidson. If you don't know anybody and you want to mingle and get to know people, buying a Harley is like the easiest way to meet people and meet people to ride with as well. Most of the time you're going to get a warm welcome from the people at the dealership and the people that go to these events, and you could make lifelong friends out of it as well. So it actually really is a fantastic part of the Harley culture. Now it's funny because some of the stereotypes with Harley riders is either we're wearing full leathers playing dress up, or we wear no gear at all. And this is definitely one that is true inside of the community. I wish I could put a number on it, but there's really, I don't know that there's a good way to gauge it. When you see most of the creators on YouTube, most of us are wearing at least a helmet, gloves, pants, and boots. Now, of course, we run microphones through our helmets, so if you're doing moto vlogging and stuff like that, that's even more crucial. So you almost have to have a full face helmet there. When you go to a Harley event, whether that's Daytona, Myrtle Beach, or Sturgis, or anything else, you're going to see a lot of people not wearing gear. You might even see, girls in bikinis, and you might see the dudes wearing shorts and flip-flops. I mean, some people take it to the extreme. Me, I say do whatever you want, understanding the risks that come along with it. There's one video I watched, and I can't show it here because YouTube would demonetize this video. It's super graphic though, and it shows what would happen if you went down and basically it shows through the shoe to the guy's foot, and you get the idea. It looks really horrific. You can look up any number of videos that show what road rash looks like, and that's not something I want. Plus, I actually consider my tattoos as well. These are things that I earned. You go through pain to get tattoos, and then to go through the pain of skin grafts and everything else, and not only ruin your skin, which is obviously the most important thing, you're also ruining the tattoos that go along with them, or at least in my case I will. So I always consider that stuff as well. And trust me, I've looked for options, because in the summertime I don't typically wear anything that covers my arms. So I've looked for options that I can wear in summer that will not only protect me, but still keep me cool. And I have yet to find anything that comes anywhere close to that. Now, of course, when you have something on over your skin, it actually is designed to keep you cooler. I just cannot stand being at a stoplight, stop and go traffic, or anything, and having a jacket on and it's 110 degrees outside. So, yeah, it is part of the risk that I take. But no matter what kind of clothing or gear you have or you don't have, those of course are going to be risk areas to you if you end up going down. As long as you understand those risks, well, there's nothing that, I don't believe in the government coming in and saying that you have to wear a helmet and you have to do this and you have to do that. I think everybody can make those decisions for themselves. But it is a common thing in the community where you will see people not wearing, even close to the amount of gear they should, or absolutely no gear whatsoever. Me, I at least have the helmet, boots, gloves. Gloves are one of the most important things, in my opinion, because when you go down, the first thing you're going to do is brace for impact, and to have your hands messed up, I mean, that's crucial to almost everybody. Either way, it's a sad but true fact about the Harley Davidson community. Here's one of those stereotypes that may get me in trouble with some of the Harley riders out there, but it is true to an extent, and that is that Harley riders kind of act like they are elite to other motorcyclists. To me, this is a very small group of Harley riders out there. Whether they're in a club or not, this is the mentality of some people. Like, just some people hate the fact that you're on a Japanese bike or a BMW or anything other than a Harley Davidson. That's the truth of it. And while that is true, there are riders out there that just think they are better than everybody. It's such a small minority compared to everybody that rides a Harley. I mean, this is one of the most talked about stereotypes out there. I mean, from Reddit to Threads to Twitter to anywhere else, you will see, I was on my sport bike, passed a Harley guy, and that guy tried to run me off the road. Or he slammed on his brakes in front of me, And yes, they are out there. One of the things that happened back in the 80s is Harley actually was accusing Japanese manufacturers of dumping their extra motorcycles into the United States on purpose, flooding the market with all these cheap motorcycles. And the Japanese companies were doing this. They were producing more motorcycles than what the demand was for the time. But it was part of their strategy, to get your Yamahas, your Suzukis, your Kawasaki's, your Hondas into the American market. And by doing so, it was a good strategy for them. But Harley Davidson went to Ronald Reagan and had him impose additional tariffs on Japanese motorcycle manufacturers. When they imported those bikes, they had to pay additional taxes to import them in. It was part of Harley's strategy after separating themselves from AMF to get the brand back to what it was. AMF was a good thing going in. It helped keep them alive, but it just turned sour for those 10, 11 years, whatever it was. It might have been 12 years. For those 10 to 12 years there, it just turned way sour. So they were trying to regain not only control in the motorcycle market, but also rebuild their reputation at the same time. And by having the Japanese flood the market with all these bikes, it wasn't helping their cause. I think it may be a case of mistaken identity, because what you call arrogance, I may call just being super prideful of not only my own motorcycle, but what that brand has represented throughout history. It's a motorcycle manufacturer that served in both World Wars, and then an entire subculture was created after World War II. And you have these old videos of guys going out to Sturgis, no fairings, no nothing, just going out there riding free. And there is a sense of freedom that comes along with it as well. I think that applies for most motorcycle riders out there. But when you can tie it to a brand that's been around for 120 years, especially here in the United States, and I don't know, it's just really a cool thing to know that my grandfather, rode a Harley. He still buys Harleys. Well, he buys bikes and, kind of gets rid of them and then go back to a Harley. And then, but old pictures of him and my grandmother on a Harley Davidson and or at a rally and stuff like that. And just kind of following in those footsteps and following in the footsteps of guys that served in World War I and World War II. And then after World War II, bought those bikes back, hung their war trophies on them, and started an entire subculture. To me, that's something we can be super proud of. And while the brand has to change, they have to move forward and continue to innovate, for a lot of us, we still are a small part of the heritage that's tied into the brand Harley Davidson. Movies, TV shows, they all portray Harley Riders specifically as outlaws, gangsters, people that don't care. And some people take that elitist attitude and pass that on in real life. But if you find yourself at a Harley Davidson event or any motorcycle event where there are predominantly Harley riders there, or hell, you might even meet them at a stoplight, you will find that the vast majority of Harley Davidson riders do not fit the stereotype whatsoever. That stereotype is not going away anytime soon, and as long as Harley Davidson and the guys that ride those bikes continue to kind of be tied to, you know, gangs and TV shows, movies, documentaries, all that kind of stuff, it's never going to change. And of course, you're going to run into some of those guys that just simply don't want anything to do with you if you don't ride a Harley Davidson. But again, they're few and far between. Now, the last stereotype that's absolutely true is that we will pay for a name brand and sacrifice speed and technology in order to do that. We simply don't care, because riding a Harley Davidson gives you things that other motorcycles just simply can't replicate. It's the sound, the look, the heritage, the freedom, the events, whatever. Anything we've talked about up to this point and more. It's all wrapped up into a bar and shield that means a lot to a lot of us. Now, this year specifically has been huge for Harley Davidson with the new Road and Street Glide, where they've put all this technology into the motorcycles and they've actually dropped the price just a little bit. It's one of the most significant things that we've done in recent times. These are bikes that break the mold, I mean, completely of what you think a Harley Davidson is, especially the Pan America, the Livewire too. You know, I'm not a fan of the Livewire, not even a little bit, but still, they are making changes inside of the company that go completely against what Harley has done in the past. But those bikes are still there. The Heritage, Fat Boys, the Ultra, the Road Glide Limited. All these bikes still fall within what you think a Harley Davidson is. It's not going to have the latest and greatest technology. It's not even going to have all the features that even a competitor like Indian will have. It's typically going to be a little bit more expensive. And with a lot of these bikes, you're lucky to get like 90 horsepower out of them. Now, they have enough torque to pull a freaking Honda Accord, but at the same time, you're definitely not going to be winning any land speed records on current Harley Davidsons for the most part. But again, Pan America, it's like 150 horsepower. The new CVO Road Glide ST is like 147. Sportster S, 120 horsepower. So they are starting to change over, and even the new Road and Street Glide, they're 105 horsepower with 130 foot-pounds of torque. So yeah, they still don't have as much power as the liquid-cooled Challenger and the 108 Power Plus. They're making improvements though. They're making steps towards giving you more bang for your buck. But look, at the end of the day, people are still going to choose Harley Davidson simply based on the heritage and that bar and shield. It means a lot to a lot of us, whether your dad rode, your grandfather rode, or you're a first generation Harley owner. Everything encompassed into what the brand means for a lot of people. That's just the way it is. And it's never really going to change, at least not in the near future. But of course, that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. What are some of the Harley stereotypes that you either embrace or you know about? Some of the stereotypes that maybe even bug you if you're a sport bike rider or ride anything other than a Harley Davidson and you happen to stumble across this video. Let me know what you think down below. And of course, if you like what I do, consider subscribing and consider joining the Shot Squad here or over on Patreon. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, holding down.